What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Bayou Bengals football. So let's get into it. Will Campbell, Mekhi Wingo, Jayden Daniels were all interviewed today. They had some interesting things to say. So, but first I want to get to, LaTerrence Welsh is a guy that's really forgotten about on this LSU team. If you remember LaTerrence Welsh, pretty big time recruit coming out of high school. Now, if you watch his game, it's a guy that really excels more so in zone coverage, where he can, because he's not a guy that you necessarily want to consistently play man to man. Like, he doesn't have ability to turn on his speed and run downfield with speedy wide receivers. But what he can do is he can read the quarterback. He can come up and make tackles. So LaTerrence Welsh, and he's got a strong, muscular, solid build. So I think LaTerrence Wells just a good all-around corner. I think when he gets snaps, I think he's a guy who, if he reaches his full skill set, I think this is a guy that's going to have a chance to play meaningful snaps for LSU. And I think he's a guy that could be a really solid special teamer for. So LaTerrence Wells, with LSU, with all the guys they brought in through transfers and all these freshmen that are hungry to play, there's, kind of guys you forget about, on your team. And that's LaTerrence Wells seems to be that kind of guy. You just forget about him. Not that he's, you don't say forget about him. That doesn't mean he's bad. It's just there's so many guys that you're kind of like, oh yeah, they still got LaTerrence Welsh too, talented young guy. So keep an eye on LaTerrence Welsh. I think he was projected by some people had projected him. Arland Scouting projected him the starting corner at one point, but I think he will probably be the second guy. J.K. Johnson being out, I think that kind of opened up the door for him a little bit as far as to move up or stay at least at number 2 on the depth chart. So looks like right now Sage Ryan at nickel, Chestnut on the outside, and then also, who's the other? Zy Alexander, too. So, Zy Alexander, Chestnut, and Sage Ryan appear to be the starters. But yeah, J.K. Johnson injured right now. So LaTerrence Wells, a talented guy. Just wanted to talk about some of his skill set. He's a really good player, too. So, be interesting to see how he performs when he's out there, but does have a skill set that I think certainly could help this LSU team, and it's always great to have depth in the secondary. So let's talk about Will Campbell. So Will Campbell, when you watch Will Campbell's tape, if you're not familiar, Will Campbell is their starting left tackle, started as a true freshman last year, number 66. He's going to wear the patch number 7 this year. What I love about Will Campbell is he is just as smooth as they come at the left tackle, just moves so easily. This guy that just, he looks like he was made to play left tackle. Like he gets into his pass set so easily. That's what I love about him. Just a strong physical presence on the football field, just looks confident in his abilities. Guy that certainly has the athleticism to get to the second level as a blocker, can sustain run blocks. Strong hands, has the overall strength, and it combines that with leverage to stay in front of guys, to lock them, control them. So, yeah, Will Campbell, just a tremendous talent at left tackle, and he's going to have a really nice season for LSU. And he's a guy that I've wanted them to interview. So here's a little bit about what he said. He was talking about, so he asked about Emory Jones, and he said that, this offensive line is very versatile. A lot of guys can play multiple positions. He did reference that Emory Jones could play guard. He's got a good relationship with Emory Jones. I guess they live together. So I think that's cool. That him and Emory Jones kind of came in, both started as true freshmen, both made an impact, both living together and becoming friends. So, yeah, I like that. He talked about his relationship with Emory Jones, the cohesiveness they have as the offensive line. He gave credit to Florida State, talked about Florida State has a veteran group on the defensive line in Verse, Lovett, Fisk. Fisk is, even though it's his first year there, Lovett's a guy that's been hurt a little bit. Florida State does have a guys that have a lot of football, even though this will be Fisk's first year starting for Florida State, and Lovett just played in about 4 games last year. They do have a lot of snaps and experience as a whole unit. Peyton Turner too is another, not Turner. Forget number 56 too is another guy. He's sophomore or redshirt sophomore. So yeah, a lot of snaps played on the Florida State defensive line. So what else did Will Campbell say? Just talked about, it sounds like he's got a good relationship with Jayden Daniels. I get the vibe that this is a close team. I think that, maybe not too close where, I guess, maybe too close can hurt you, but close enough where they can still, have that brotherly love to challenge guys to play better and continue to improve. So, I think that this is exciting to hear that. He's got a good relationship with the quarterback, and the quarterback should always have a good relationship with the offensive line. So Jayden Daniels, Will Campbell, good relationship, and then like I touched on, him and Emory Jones have an outstanding relationship too. So I want to talk about before I get to what Jayden Daniels and Mekhi Wingo said, let's scout Florida State a little bit. So Brian Kelly said something interesting, as far as recruiting transfers. I love that the reporter asked him the question, what exactly are you looking for when you're going after transfers? And Brian Kelly kind of said something along the lines of, you just want to get players that can come in and fill position, that can really help you and have a chance to make immediate snaps. I guess that's the main pitch in recruiting transfers is telling them that they're going to be they have an opportunity to play and they have an opportunity to be at the top of the depth chart. Now, you don't want to guarantee playing time. I know that goes with recruiting incoming freshmen, but you also just want to give that transfer an avenue to play. And Brian Kelly talked about Keon Coleman. If you're not familiar with Keon Coleman, he was a transfer from Michigan State. He's going to play at Florida State this year, projected to start, had a really nice season at Michigan State last year in 2022. So Brian Kelly talked about, they obviously wanted Keon Coleman along with a lot of people because he's from the state of Louisiana. But the main pitch Florida State has was, well, first of all, it was interesting. Florida State initially offered him a scholarship out of high school, along with obviously Michigan State. Not a lot of other big-time programs, but Auburn did and some others. But the Florida State's main pitch was, we got Johnny Wilson, or we have some receivers, but you have an opportunity to start, play meaningful, significant snaps for us right away. So that's why Brian Kelly understood that Florida State had probably the best chance of most teams to land Keon Coleman, just because they could make the pitch that he was going to play meaningful snaps right away. So that leads me to Florida State's offense. So Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Trey Benson highlight some of their playmakers offensively. Also Jaheim Bell. They also have another tight end that's good. Mike Norvell talked about they have 4 guys capable of playing meaningful snaps at the tight end position. And Florida State, you look at their offensive line, and I'd say it's solid. I would say it's ahead of some of the past year's offensive line, especially towards the end of Jimbo Fisher's tenure where the offensive line really struggled. I say it's definitely ahead of that, but it is an offensive line that I don't think is necessarily going to be elite. Jeremiah Byers is a guy they brought in from UTEP. He's a talented guy. The center, I have some of these guys. Maurice Smith is a good center, too. Fentrell Cypress, a guy they brought in from Virginia at corner, a guy that's got some size, length, can make plays on the ball, 14 pass breakups last year. Jeremiah Byers. Dimitri Emmanuel, too, a guy that started all 13 games last year at right guard for him. So, Florida State, a combination of a key transfer, Jeremiah Byers, and then some experience. Byers projected to start at right tackle, and then some experience on the interior with Dimitri Emmanuel and Maurice Smith. So Florida State, as far as the battle in the trenches, it's LSU has an opportunity, even without Mason Smith, with Mekhi Wingo, Gilroy Jefferson. LSU has a chance to win that battle in the interior. I think Maurice Smith and Dimitri are talented players, but I don't think they're guys that are going to present a huge challenge, an obstacle for Mekhi Wingo, Jordan Jefferson, Gilroy, some of the interior defensive linemen for LSU. So Florida State offensive line, really just, I think the perfect label for it is solid. Now, maybe it could be good. I think solid is the perfect way to describe it. But yeah, if Byers is a superstar and Emmanuel and Maurice Smith improve, then I think that's the case for it to be good. But at this point in time, I think it's safe to label it as solid. I think the wide receiving core is good. It could be very good. So offensive line as of now, solid. Receiving core, safe to say solid, could be very good, especially Destin Jacobs, too, another guy, true freshman projected to start. This guy that's very electric after the catch. We just have not seen him play college football yet. So how is his game translate to the college level? It appears to be it's going to be very strong just because of how he's this play strength, run after the catch ability to make catches with guys draped all over him. All those skills on full display, those should translate well to the collegiate level. So as of right now, the receiver core is good. It just has the potential. We're just waiting to see if it could be very good or elite. But actually, I'll throw it out there. I'll say Florida State's wide receiver core is very good. I think, I'll give it the label very good. I think the question is, can they be elite? Because Johnny Wilson, an NFL caliber receiver, Keon Coleman, an NFL caliber receiver, we just need to go see them be those guys. And then Destin Jacobs just needs to step up at that slot position. True freshman who is flashing all, like Mike Norvell said. And this kind of backs up my question with Jacobs. He has shown all the ability you saw in high school. So that's the thing. That's kind of the aha moment I've had scouting players from high school. Pretty much, I'd say 95 to 99% of their skill set in high school translate to college. Now, some things they do at a certain level in high school, maybe they take a slight step back in college, but it's still usually if they can do it at a high school level, especially if they play at a big-time high school, it usually translates exactly to the collegiate level. So the fact that Destin Jacobs, you saw it in high school, in practice he's showing his ability, likely going to see it on Sunday against LSU, and that could be the case. That is one of the, I guess I haven't listened to a bunch of other talk, but that is probably the case for Florida State to win this game. One or two of their receivers just goes off. Like if I were to see the stat line, Keon Coleman, 2 receiving touchdowns, 110 yards, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think it's safe to say Florida State's winning this game. To me, the way Florida State winning last year, to me, if they find success early in this game, or if they can move the ball early in this game, I think that is the case. Then you got to believe that they're probably going to win this game because, if you beat a team the year before and you return quite a bit of guys, you start to move the ball, and that belief is just immediately clicks in your head. Like, hey, we did this last year. Oh, look, we're moving the ball. So that, and then Keon Coleman and the Florida State wide receivers just presenting too much of a challenge. Those two things right there, or those few things going Florida State's way, you got to believe that's going to equate to a W Sunday night. Patrick Payton was his name, too, the other guy for Florida State. So, yeah, defensive line. I'd say the Florida State defensive line's good. The question is just very good because Fisk, coming from Western Michigan, I say he's a very good player. We just need to see. It is a little bit of a step up, but he should be very good. Jared Verse is elite. Fabian Lovett is good. So with that combination, I would say, and Patrick Payton appears to be a good player. I didn't scout him a lot. So the defensive line, good. Like I said, I think the Florida State presents an interesting challenge for SEC teams like LSU last year, just because they have a lot of SEC size. Being in the state of Florida, you can recruit a lot of the southern size, big physical guys. Lovett, former Mississippi State transfer. Jared Verse, I know, was a transfer from Albany, but he looks like not just looks like an SEC edge rusher. He's an NFL elite edge rusher and elite mover. So he's, a complete exception to the rule there. And then Braden Fisk, a guy that's been dominant even at Western Michigan. That's, it appears he's going to be dominant also at Florida State. So, I'd actually, the Florida State defensive line to me is kind of similar to the Florida State wide receiver core. I think at very least it's going to be good, but I guess I'm gonna talk myself into saying it's gonna be very good. The question is, can it be elite? And Jared Verse is gonna be elite. We know that. Fabian Lovett's gonna be good if healthy. Braden Fisk is gonna be good to very good. Patrick Payton is gonna be solid to good. So it kind of just depends on if Fisk, Payton, Lovett, if those guys can take another step, then this defensive line certainly will be very good to elite. But yeah, Jayden Daniels. So Jayden Daniels press conference. Jayden Daniels talked about his relationship with Malik Neighbors. I thought that was cool that him and Malik Neighbors are growing a bond off the field. It's not only important for a quarterback to have a good relationship with the offensive line. It's good to have a good relationship with the wide receiving core as well. And Malik Neighbors certainly is one of the best wide receivers in all of college football. Just an incredible talent. A guy that's going to be one of the top receivers for the 2024 NFL Draft. But yeah, Mekhi Wingo. So Mekhi Wingo, Mason Smith being out certainly was kind of in the mix as far as questions Wingo was getting. But he also was asked about Swinson and Ogofu. Not really asked, but he was talking about that he's confident with Swinson and Ogofu being able to get after the quarterback on third down. And that goes into, Swinson and Ogofu, getting those guys. That kind of ties into LSU's whole theme this year is getting better, is getting off the field on third down. So with Swinson and Ogofu, to me, that is going to be, those guys are going to be create problems for opposing offenses on third down. And then Gilroy was asked about Jacobian Gilroy, and someone posed the question similar to how I think about Jacobian Gilroy. Gilroy probably the least talked about guy in this LSU defensive line, but he is a guy who is a veteran presence now, and that's what Mekhi Wingo referenced, that he is a veteran, one of the older guys now, a leader. He's got a booming personality, and talked about that Gilroy has had a good spring and a good fall camp. So to me, this goes back to the conversation I talked about with Jacobian Gilroy, that to me, this is his ultimate opportunity, and this is his year. This is his moment. If this is kind of this game in this season, is a defining moment for Jacobian Gilroy. Not going to get too deep here, but you gotta. It's like an Urban Meyer talked about in that Swamp Kings documentary. You don't. Sometimes in life you get like several key moments, key opportunities. Now this isn't Gilroy's only key opportunity, but with Mason Smith out, Wingo said he's going to get the start, which is interesting because I thought it'd be Jefferson. This is Gilroy's chance to prove that not only he's a good starter, but has an NFL, but his chance to show that he's live up to the 4-star billing and show that he has an NFL future and shows that he can be dominant, disruptive, all things we saw in high school. He's got a chance to prove it week 1 in a big-time game, a game that tape is going to be a hot topic when he declares for the NFL draft, if it's this year or next year. So a big moment for Jacobian Gilroy. It's cool that the coaching staff and Mekhi Wingo have backed up that Gilroy's had a good spring and fall. And that was Wingo said it along the lines of it's got a chance to step up to the plate. Yeah, whatever terminology you want to use, big opportunity, step up to the plate, whatever you want to use, it's certainly a chance for Jacobian Gilroy. And the other guy, so Brian Kelly, I was listening to Brian Kelly's press conference yesterday. The other guy that's impressing is Jaylen Lee. Maybe Jaylen Lee steps up big in this game. So I think that's the difference. Now, I made the case of LSU blowing out Florida State. I think that's the case for LSU to, that's the case for LSU to really control this game on the defensive line, because if, Florida State goes into this game, pretty confident their offensive line is going to be solid, and with Mason Smith out, you kind of have that, they kind of have that thinking in the back of their mind, like we could control this game. If Jaylen Lee, Gilroy, Wingo, Swinson, Ogofu, I guess just pretty much all the defensive line in this defense, this front, 4, front 5, front 6, if they really kind of shock Florida State and come out and have an edge early, that could be really deflating to the Florida State offense. To me, that's kind of, Florida State's offense could look like LSU's offense last year. To me, like with Jordan Travis running for his life, I felt last year Daniels was not necessarily running for his life, but there was a lot of plays he was just kind of running almost, I don't want to say aimlessly, but running almost unconfidently, like that was kind of his only option, in that he was not necessarily panicking, but, was just kind of, running to, because he just, he kind of had that thought in the back of his mind, like he's not going to have a lot of time. So to me, Jordan Travis is a talented quarterback, but he is a guy where, he's not an elite playmaker on the move. Can he make throws on the run? Can he make plays on the run? Yes, but that's not necessarily. He does not necessarily do that at a strong level. And if he's on the run most of the night, you got to believe that is going to equate to at least one or two mistakes, or it's going to equate to some incompletions, some throwaways. So that's going to be key because, Travis, to me, I think that's what kind of, to describe Jordan Travis, he is a guy who can generate a lot of confidence when he's in a rhythm in his offensive lines controlling the game, like last year against LSU. But I think that doubt, I think he's a confident enough guy that he can still compete, but I think that doubt creeping into him and that Florida State offensive line, I think could be key for LSU in this football game. But kind of wanted to go over those guys, Welsh, Campbell, Jayden Daniels. Terrence, back to Welsh. That's it sounds like, from what I've heard, it sounds like he's had a pretty good camp, which is big for him. He's, to me, it's kind of, I can't remember exactly if he's a Brian Kelly recruit or an Orgeron guy, but to me, it's kind of, the key way you can tell LSU's improving is, a lot of the guys from the Ed Orgeron era, are either being challenged for playing time. Like Sage Ryan's a perfect example. It's good that he's having a good camp because he's one of the guys that's really getting challenged to take another step so he can get on the field. Like Terrence Wells, he's another guy that's getting challenged. Some of these guys, Orgeron, I think his recruiting, towards the end, obviously they hit on Mason Smith, but Mason Smith appeared to be kind of a no-brainer. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is I'm giving credit to Brian Kelly's recruiting, but also I'm acknowledging that some of the guys are just kind of being weeded out because, this recruiting staff is taking it to another level. There's more competition. They're hitting on transfers. A lot of these true freshmen are hungry to play. So that's kind of how guys end up. That's why the transfer portal, has taken off, just because, you get buried on the depth chart, your chance of playing, that's kind of the aha moment with football nowadays is, with more true freshmen, with more rookies, with the emphasis on young, even in high school, with the emphasis on young guys who are talented playing right away. If you're a guy in a program, say at Florida State or LSU, that's a sophomore, junior, redshirt junior, and you're second, third string, your chance, at this point, you're probably not going to get a whole lot better. Maybe you can improve a little bit. You can mature physically. But your chance of playing just seems to increase as the years go on. Because if we don't see it, if you don't perform and show the ability as a freshman, then when are they ever going to see it? Maybe it's just maybe the guy was just overrated out of high school. Maybe he just doesn't have the work ethic. Maybe he just isn't getting better. Maybe he's dealt with injuries. There's a number of factors. But to me, if a guy is the guy, you see it right away. To me, Mason Smith is the ultimate example of that. I know we've talked about Mason Smith a ton, but he is their star player. To me, Mason Smith, look at Mason Smith. He wasn't even primarily their starter in 2021. Missed basically all of last season with the exception of the first couple drives of the Florida State game. But Mason Smith was so dominant, and he's been so dominant in practice, from what the coaches have said, and then you saw it in 2021 and the last year under the Orgeron regime, that people are still anticipating and still talking about the impact Mason Smith can have. That's when with a little playing time, that's when a guy is a true talent. Mason's, some guys, say Mason Smith came in, because 5-star guy, one of the top defensive lineman, say he came in 2021, barely played, and then this year gets on the field as a backup, hurts and misses the whole season. Now you're going into this year like kind of just not necessarily writing him off, but like, is this guy's career, almost coming to an end? And you don't want to think that negatively, but that's kind of the way it can go. You've seen that with Alabama. Some 5-star guys in Ohio State when Urban Meyer was there, some 5-star guys just get weeded out because, you go into the program and if, you're not the man right away, you get buried on the depth chart, you redshirt, sometimes you're just not necessarily forgotten about, but you're just kind of, it's just a constant uphill battle. But yeah, so, all right, guys. Yeah, I'm going to wrap with that. Thanks for tuning in to Bayou Bengals Football. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Thanks for listening. Till next time. Peace.